Hey guys, welcome back to the Interior Auto Mechanic. Today, we're working on our temporary replacement autocross and HPDE car, a 1991 Honda Civic Si. If you're new to the channel, welcome and thank you for checking this out. I recently picked this car up, and while it already has some great modifications from the previous owner, we have to make it our own. So, in this video, we're going to go ahead and swap out this AEM cold air intake for a vintage, period correct Iceman cold air intake, install a vintage Neuspeed front strut tower bar, and upgrade the wheels and tires to something that fit the era, but also just look way better in my opinion. So, without further ado, let's just go ahead and get right into it. First up, let's remove the AEM cold air intake. This should be a pretty straightforward job, so we'll go ahead and start by loosening these couplers that secure the intake piping to the throttle body. There's also a breather hose here that connects the upper portion of the cold air intake to the valve cover, and we'll have to remove that as well. Now, this one here has hardened over time, so we're just going to cut this one off and then replace it later with a new piece of hose. The lower section actually wasn't even bolted in, which makes things so much easier to remove. The lower section is actually still in the inner fender well, so once I jack this thing up, I should just be able to reach up in the inner fender well and pull it right out. And here's our replacement, an old school Iceman cold air intake, and before installing it permanently, I plan to repaint it since it looks a little rough, but for now let's just mock it up and check the fitment. If you're into classic Honda mods, you might recognize this. The Iceman cold air intake back in the 90s and early 2000s was a go-to upgrade for Civics. Unlike most metal intakes, the Iceman was made from lightweight composite material that helped reduce heat soak while pulling cooler air from the fender. It was also one of the first true cold air intakes designed for the EF, and while they're discontinued now, they're still sought after by many old school Honda enthusiasts, some saying that it outperforms modern intakes in heat resistance and in airflow. But let me know, would you run one of these in your build, or is it just a relic of the past? So it looks like I'm going to need to move the battery slightly forward to make some room, and we'll also need a new coupler to connect the intake to the throttle body. This Iceman intake has a spot for an IAT sensor or an intake air temperature sensor, but we won't be using that because this car's not wired for that. So we're just going to leave this one unplugged since this sensor's not hurting anything. As far as moving the battery forward, that's not going to be an issue either because we're going to be upgrading this battery to a newer battery, one that's smaller and not as heavy. We're going to be upgrading to a 2009 through 2013 Honda Fit battery. That battery is a 151R battery. One thing to note, I'm not routing this intake down into the fender. While this setup is great for airflow, and it's actually what the Iceman cold air intakes are known for, also increases the risk of hydrolocking the engine. Hydrolocking happens when water gets sucked up into the engine, which can bend rods and cause serious damage, and that's something I just don't want to have to deal with. So I'm just going to run the cold air intake like this, put a filter on the end of it, and probably end up doing some piping that will bring cold air right up to the filter from the inner fender liner. While I had everything apart for the cold air intake, I decided to go ahead and install our front strut tower bar as well. A strut tower bar helps stiffen up the front suspension, improving handling and the steering response, and it's definitely a worthwhile upgrade for autocross or HPDE. Now, prior to me purchasing this car, it had a Neuspeed front strut tower bar installed on it by the previous owner, but they decided to keep it for their CRX. Luckily, I had one lying around from years ago. Now, typically, strut tower bars are cake to install, Remove a couple bolts, install the strut tower bar on the studs, and bolt it back down. However, this one decided to fight me and took quite a while to install. Every time I would get 2 bolt holes lined up, the other 2 would be anywhere from a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch off from being able to slide onto the studs. Finally, after nearly an hour of yanking and pulling this bar every which way, I finally was able to get it installed. After finally getting this Neuspeed strut tower bar installed, I now understand why these bars are so sought after. This bar is probably the most rigid strut tower bar I've ever installed. I had to get a little creative with the wiring right around where the fuse block is on the passenger side strut tower. As you can see here, we kind of looped it up and around to where nothing is stretched and nothing is strained necessarily, but it's a little different from stock. Let me know down in the comment section below as well if you guys like this strut tower bar or if you know of a newer one that you think is a lot better. Alright guys, and here is our installed, custom painted Iceman cold air intake. Let me know down in the comment section below if you like the color match on this cold air intake or if you would have painted it a different color. Now, let's talk about wheels and tires. The ones currently on the car aren't bad, but they don't quite fit the period correct look I'm going for. I'm swapping them out for a set that better matches the late 80s, early 90s style. So hopefully I can get a couple extra Steve's points from the local flat bill wearing Honda kids and really blend in and gain their trust. So for our replacement wheels, I chose to go with a Carving Lover Soul Wheel, also known as the Carving Lover Spirits, and it's a pretty rare JDM wheel from the 90s. These wheels are known for their unique black face and machined lip, and overall, I just think they look really cool. Now, these wheels are highly sought after today due to their limited production and distinct styling. While they're on the heavier side, their rarity makes them a prized find to me. These wheels in particular are a 17x7, 4x100 bolt pattern with a +25 offset. So this is going to just give us a little bit of wheel poke, nothing crazy. It's really fitting for the air of the car, and that's what we're trying to stick with. And while these wheels are known for their strength, they're also known for something else, and that is their weight. These wheels are pretty much just made for style, so we won't be running these come track season. But that's all right. I've already got my eyes on another set of wheels and tires that will be perfect for the track. If you're watching this, you probably already know how to change out wheels and tires, but if you don't, it's pretty simple. You break the lug nuts loose before jacking the car up, lift it safely up using jack stands. Mine clearly were those special Bluetooth ones you can't see. Remove the old wheels, scuff up the surfaces of the back of the wheels and your rotors to make sure that you have any surface rust off, and reinstall. Always tighten your lug nuts in a crisscross pattern to ensure even torque distribution, and once the car's lowered, go around them and torque them to spec. So this is going to be our final modification for the car in this video. Obviously, I know there's going to be a difference of opinions and people saying that the car should be more low, or you might not even like the wheels, and that's okay too. Personally, I like the way that it looks. I like the way that it's currently sitting. Let me know down in the comments below if you love what I've done, if you hate what I've done. I would love to know what you think. In the next video, I'm going to be installing a new header, a new radiator, and then we're going to move on to some interior stuff after that. So if you like this video, please consider hitting the like button. I would greatly appreciate that, and it would mean the world and all to me if you would hit the subscribe button. If you've got any questions, comments, concerns, please put them right down in the comment section below, and I will do my best to get back to you as fast as physically possible. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Good luck on your projects, and have a great day.